You track your symptoms with obsessive precision, Google every twinge of pain, and speak of your ailments as if they were defining features of your identity. You live in a state of perpetual vigilance against your own body, treating it as a fragile machine perpetually on the verge of breakdown. But what if this very conception of sickness as an enemy to be fought, this belief that disease is a powerful force waiting to attack, represents not wisdom, but a profound and dangerous misunderstanding of the nature of life itself? The modern world has taught you to fear your own flesh. You wake each morning wondering what new symptom might emerge, what genetic time bomb might detonate, what invisible pathogen might breach your defenses. You feel powerless against the onslaught of germs, the tyranny of heredity, and the inevitable decay of aging. This is the pain of our time. Living as a victim of biology, forever at war with forces beyond your control. But this entire framework of understanding is built upon an illusion so pervasive that questioning it seems like madness. Most people perceive health as a precious possession they might lose at any moment, and sickness as a malevolent entity lying in wait to attack them. They arm themselves with supplements and sanitizers, building fortresses against an enemy they believe to be real and powerful. But Wallace D. Wattles, in his revolutionary work, The Science of Being Well, revealed that this entire paradigm is backwards. There is no army of diseases waiting to invade. There is no battle to be fought. There exists only one power in the universe when it comes to your physical being, the principle of health, an intelligent force that works ceaselessly to express perfect vitality through you. What you call sickness is not a thing at all. It possesses no substance, no independent existence, no power of its own. Sickness is merely the absence of your natural state of perfect health, a shadow cast by your own interference with the life force that is your birthright. This is not mysticism or wishful thinking. This is the logical conclusion of understanding the true nature of the creative principle that animates all living things. When you grasp this truth fully, the entire architecture of fear surrounding your physical existence begins to crumble, replaced by a profound sense of power and possibility. Wallace D. Wattles was not a mystic spinning fantasies about magical healing. He was a logical philosopher who approached the question of health with the same rigorous thinking he applied to wealth and success. He recognized that health, like prosperity, operates according to definite laws, and that living in accordance with these laws, what he called living in a certain way, produces predictable scientific results. His insights were not based on hope, but on the observable principle that governs all manifestation in the physical world. This video will reveal Wattles' principle of health in its full depth and practical application. You will discover how to stop exhausting yourself, fighting phantom enemies, and start cooperating with the unstoppable life force that flows through you every moment. You will learn the specific mental and physical practices that align you with this principle, transforming your relationship with your body from one of fear to one of confident partnership. Most importantly, you will understand why your current approach to health may be the very thing keeping you from experiencing the vitality that is trying to express itself through you. But here is what you must know before we continue. There is one common mental habit, practiced daily by millions, that actively blocks the flow of health and guarantees poor vitality. This habit is so normalized in our culture that you probably engage in it without realizing its devastating impact. I will reveal this health-destroying practice in Part 4, along with the simple shift that immediately reverses its effects. For now, if you are ready to discover your true relationship with the principle of health, subscribe to this channel and share in the comments below. Do you spend more mental energy thinking about health or thinking about sickness? The principle of health, as Wattles revealed, is not an abstract concept, but a living reality operating within you at this very moment. It is an aspect of what he called the thinking stuff, the intelligent substance from which all things are made and by which all things are animated. This principle permeates every cell of your body, every organ, every system, with a single, unwavering purpose: to express more life, more vitality, more perfect function through your physical form. It never sleeps, never takes a break, never loses its power or intention. Consider the implications of this truth. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Without any conscious effort on your part, an intelligent force is working to optimize every aspect of your physical being. When you cut your finger, this principle immediately orchestrates a complex symphony of cellular activity to heal the wound. When you sleep, it repairs tissues, balances hormones, and refreshes your neural networks. When you eat, it transforms dead matter into living cells with an intelligence that surpasses the understanding of our most advanced science. This is not a neutral or random process. It is directed, purposeful, and always moving toward greater expression of life. The principle of health never produces sickness. This statement bears repeating and deep contemplation. The force that animates you is incapable of creating disease, dysfunction, or decay. These conditions are not the work of the life principle, but rather the result of interference with its natural expression. Just as a river naturally flows toward the sea unless obstructed, the principle of health naturally produces perfect vitality unless blocked by opposing thoughts and actions. Understanding this changes everything about how you approach your physical well-being. When you truly grasp that there is an intelligent force within you, whose sole purpose is to maintain and enhance your health, the entire medical paradigm of fighting disease begins to seem absurd. You do not need to battle illness any more than you need to battle darkness. You simply need to stop creating the conditions that prevent the light from shining. The symptoms you experience, the conditions you've been diagnosed with, the genetic predispositions you fear, none of these are attacks from hostile forces. They are simply indicators that somewhere, somehow, you are interfering with the natural flow of life through your being. This interference happens primarily through thought. Every thought you think has a creative tendency, and when you think thoughts of disease, decay, and dysfunction, you are literally using your creative power to manifest these conditions. You are not being attacked by arthritis. You are creating it through years of thinking and speaking about stiff joints and aging bodies. You are not falling victim to a weak immune system. You are weakening it through constant fear of illness and obsessive focus on protection from disease. The very act of fighting sickness reinforces its apparent reality in your experience. But here is the liberating truth. Just as wrong thinking creates interference with the principle of health, right thinking removes that interference. When you align your thoughts with the truth of your being, that you are animated by an intelligent force that only knows how to create perfect health, you remove the dam that has been blocking the river. The principle doesn't need to be strengthened or helped. It simply needs to be allowed to flow unobstructed. This is not about positive thinking overcoming negative reality. This is about recognizing which is the reality and which is the illusion. The moment you stop thinking of yourself as a fragile biological machine, prone to break down, and start recognizing yourself as a vessel for an intelligent life force, everything changes. Your cells respond to this shift in consciousness. Your immune system strengthens. Your organs function more efficiently. Chronic conditions that seemed permanent begin to resolve. This is not miracle healing. This is simply what happens when you stop interfering with the miracle that is already trying to happen within you every moment of every day. Yet most people spend their entire lives never discovering this truth. They accept sickness as inevitable, decay as natural, and disease as powerful. They study symptoms, memorize drug names, and identify with their diagnoses. They join support groups for their conditions and bond over their shared suffering. All of this attention, all of this mental energy, all of this creative power is directed toward reinforcing the very conditions they wish to escape. They are using the principle of creation to create the opposite of what they desire. The principle of health doesn't judge or punish. It simply responds to the patterns of thought and action you maintain. When you think thoughts of disease, it must work through that resistance. When you think thoughts of health, you clear the channel for its full expression. This is not a moral issue, but a mechanical one, as predictable as the law of gravity. Align with the principle and health flows. Oppose it and health is obstructed. The choice, always, is yours. Consider how much mental energy you devote to preventing illness versus promoting health. Most people's medicine cabinets are arsenals against disease rather than tools for vitality. Their conversations center on what's wrong rather than what's right. Their attention is captured by every article about new diseases, every warning about health risks, every story of medical crisis. Each of these moments of attention is a creative act, reinforcing the paradigm of vulnerability and attack that keeps them trapped in cycles of poor health. But you are reading this because some part of you suspects there is another way. Some part of you recognizes that the constant battle against disease is exhausting and ultimately futile. Some part of you is ready to stop fighting and start flowing. This readiness is itself the principle of health calling to you, inviting you to return to your natural state of vitality. The principle never gives up on you, never stops trying to express perfect health through you, no matter how long or how thoroughly you have opposed it. The question now is not whether the principle of health is real or whether it is working within you. These are established facts of existence. The question is whether you will continue to interfere with it or learn to cooperate with it. Whether you will continue to use your creative power to manifest disease or redirect it toward manifesting health. Whether you will remain a victim of illusion or become a conscious partner with the life force that animates you. This is not about denial of physical symptoms or rejection of medical science. Symptoms are real experiences, and medical intervention has its place. But symptoms are effects, not causes. Medical treatment addresses effects, not causes. The cause is always in the realm of thought and consciousness in your relationship with the principle of health. When you address the cause, the effects must change. This is not hope or faith, but law as certain as any principle of physics. The journey from sickness to health, from fear to confidence, from victim to creator, begins with this single recognition. There is only one power operating in your body, and that power only knows how to create perfect health. Everything else is interference, and interference can be removed. This is the foundation upon which Wattles built his entire science of being well, and it is the foundation upon which you will build your new experience of vibrant, fearless health. To fully grasp the revolutionary nature of Wattles' teaching, we must examine it through the lens of powerful analogies that make the abstract concrete and the invisible visible. Consider first the analogy of the river, which Wattles himself employed to illustrate the continuous flow of the life principle through your being. The principle of health is like a mighty river, fed by an infinite source, always flowing toward the ocean of perfect well-being. This river has tremendous power. It can carve canyons through solid rock, nourish entire ecosystems, and carry you effortlessly toward your destination of vibrant health. Now here is the crucial understanding. Sickness is not another river flowing in the opposite direction. There is no counterforce pushing against the principle of health. Sickness is simply what happens when you build a dam across the river with your own thoughts and actions. Every fearful thought about disease is a stone added to this dam. Every conversation about your symptoms is another layer of obstruction. Every moment spent identifying with illness rather than health reinforces the barrier you have constructed. The river hasn't lost its power. It has simply been blocked from expressing that power in your experience. This changes everything about how you approach healing. You do not need to fight the dam, attack it, or destroy it with force. You simply need to stop building it and start dismantling it stone by stone, thought by thought. As you remove each obstruction, each limiting belief about your body, each fear of disease, each identification with sickness, the river naturally resumes its flow. The healing power was never absent. It was simply prevented from reaching you by barriers of your own construction. The moment these barriers are removed, health rushes back into your experience like water breaking through a weakened dam. Consider how much effort people expend trying to create health through force. Aggressive treatments, harsh protocols, exhausting regimens. They are trying to push the river uphill, to force health into existence through will and effort. But the river is already flowing in the direction of health. It requires no force, no push, no exhausting effort. It requires only the removal of resistance. This is why people who finally let go and stop fighting often experience spontaneous healings that baffle medical science. They haven't done something powerful, they've stopped doing something obstructive. The second analogy, equally profound, compares sickness to darkness. This illustration completely reframes our understanding of disease and its relationship to health. Darkness, as physics confirms, has no actual existence. It is not a thing, but rather the absence of a thing, specifically the absence of light. You cannot collect darkness in a jar, measure its weight, or observe its particles. Darkness is simply what remains when light is blocked or absent. No matter how deep or complete the darkness appears, it has no power to resist the light. The moment light appears, darkness instantly vanishes without struggle or process. Sickness operates according to this same principle. It is not an entity with its own existence and power. It is simply the absence of health, the shadow cast when the light of the life principle is blocked. You cannot actually fight darkness. There is nothing there to fight. You can only introduce light. Similarly, you cannot truly fight disease because disease is not a thing but an absence. You can only remove whatever is blocking the expression of health, allowing the ever-present principle of health to illuminate your being with its natural radiance. This understanding revolutionizes medical thinking. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this disease?" you ask, "What is blocking the expression of health?" Instead of studying the darkness to understand it better, you study the light and learn how to stop obstructing it. Instead of becoming an expert in pathology, you become a student of vitality. The shift is not semantic but fundamental, changing not just how you think about health, but how health actually manifests in your body. Think about how we typically approach illness. We name it, study it, fear it, and give it tremendous power through our attention. We say, "I have arthritis," as if arthritis were an entity that has taken up residence in our joints. We say, "Cancer runs in my family," as if cancer were a hereditary possession passed down through generations. We give these shadows substance through our belief in their reality and power. But what if we recognize them as merely the absence of light, the blocking of flow, the interference with a principle that never stops trying to express perfect health? The light analogy also reveals why fighting disease is so exhausting and ultimately futile. Imagine trying to remove darkness from a room by shoveling it out, by attacking it with weapons, by building walls against it. You could exhaust yourself for a lifetime, and the darkness would remain, because you are fighting something that doesn't actually exist. But flip a switch, light a candle, open a curtain, and the darkness vanishes instantly without any fight at all. This is the secret of true healing, not fighting what isn't there, but introducing what is. When you understand that the principle of health is like light, always present, always ready to illuminate, always more powerful than any darkness, your entire approach to well-being transforms. You stop studying diseases and start studying health. You stop fearing symptoms and start trusting the principle. You stop identifying with shadows and start identifying with light. This is not denial or delusion. This is recognition of which force is real and which is merely absence. The river wants to flow, you must simply remove the dam. The light wants to shine, you must simply stop blocking it. The principle of health wants to express through you, you must simply cease your interference. This is the unshakable logic of Wattles' system, and it stands in complete opposition to the fear-based, disease-focused paradigm that dominates modern thinking about health. One paradigm makes you a victim of powerful enemies. The other reveals you as the guardian of an unstoppable force. These analogies are not mere poetic devices. They are precise descriptions of how the principle of health actually operates in your body. When you internalize these truths, when you begin to see sickness as blocked flow rather than enemy attack, as absence rather than presence, as shadow rather than substance, everything about your physical experience begins to shift. Chronic conditions lose their grip. Genetic fears lose their power. The entire architecture of disease consciousness begins to crumble. The question is not whether these principles are true. They are demonstrated every moment in every healing that occurs in every body on this planet. The question is whether you will align your thinking with these truths or continue to operate from the illusion that disease has independent power. Whether you will keep building dams and blocking light or learn to trust the river and welcome the illumination. The choice determines not just your health, but your entire experience of inhabiting a physical body. The transformation from disease consciousness to health consciousness begins with a fundamental redirection of your mental attention. This is not a casual suggestion, but an absolute requirement for allowing the principle of health to flow unobstructed through your being. You must consciously, deliberately, and completely withdraw your attention from symptoms, diseases, and bodily imperfections. This means turning your back on the darkness to face the light, refusing to give creative power to shadows while investing all your mental energy in the reality of ever-present vitality. Consider how radical this shift truly is. Modern culture has trained you to be hyper-vigilant about your body's signals, to monitor every sensation for signs of danger, to catch problems early through constant surveillance. You have been taught that this vigilance is wisdom, that this attention to potential problems is responsible behavior. But Wattles reveals that this very vigilance is the mechanism by which you create the conditions you fear. Every moment of attention given to disease is a creative act, using your power to manifest the very thing you wish to avoid. The mental preparation required is similar to what a tightrope walker must achieve before stepping onto the wire. They cannot look down at the danger below. They must fix their gaze on the platform ahead. They cannot think about falling. They must think only of walking. The moment their attention shifts to what they fear, they begin to manifest that fear in reality. Your journey to health requires this same disciplined focus, this same refusal to give power to what you do not want to experience. This does not mean ignoring genuine signals from your body or refusing necessary medical care. It means changing your fundamental relationship with physical sensations. Instead of immediately interpreting every discomfort as a sign of disease, you recognize it as the body's communication that some adjustment is needed. Instead of fearfully Googling symptoms, you calmly ask what thought or action pattern needs to shift. Instead of identifying with conditions, you maintain your identity as a perfect expression of the principle of health, temporarily experiencing some interference. The practice begins the moment you wake up. Instead of doing a mental body scan for problems, you immediately affirm the truth. The principle of health is flowing through me perfectly. Instead of wondering what might go wrong today, you expect everything to go right. Instead of preparing for battle against disease, you prepare for cooperation with vitality. This is not positive thinking layered on top of negative reality. This is choosing which reality you will energize with your creative attention. Throughout your day, you must become vigilant not about symptoms, but about thoughts. Every time your mind drifts toward disease, you must consciously redirect it toward health. Every time someone tries to engage you in conversation about illness, you must gracefully decline or redirect. Every time you encounter information about diseases, whether in media, conversation, or your own research, you must recognize it as pollution of your mental environment and protect yourself accordingly. This mental discipline extends to how you interpret physical sensations. That twinge in your knee is not the beginning of arthritis. It is your body requesting a slight adjustment in how you move. That headache is not a sign of something serious. It is feedback that some aspect of your thinking or living needs to shift. That fatigue is not evidence of declining health. It is an invitation to better honor your body's rhythms. The sensation remains the same, but your interpretation, and therefore your creative response, completely transforms. You must also transform your mental imagery about your body. Most people carry mental pictures of themselves as deteriorating, aging, vulnerable biological machines. These images, held consistently in consciousness, become blueprints that the principle of health must work through. But when you replace these images with visions of yourself as vibrant, strong, and perfectly functioning, you provide new blueprints that allow the principle to express more fully. See yourself not as you appear, but as you truly are. A perfect expression of infinite life. The withdrawal of attention from disease must be complete and uncompromising. This means no medical dramas on television, no articles about health crises, no support groups centered on illness, no identity built around conditions or diagnoses. This is not denial. It is the recognition that what you give attention to grows, and you choose to give attention only to what you want to expand in your experience. You are not running from reality. You are choosing which reality to feed with your creative power. This mental preparation requires particular vigilance around the cultural programming that equates aging with inevitable decline. Society has taught you to expect deterioration, to anticipate problems, to prepare for the worst. But the principle of health knows nothing of age. It works as perfectly in a 90-year-old body as in a 19-year-old body, unless interfered with by thoughts of inevitable decline. When you refuse to accept aging as deterioration, when you expect vitality at every age, you remove one of the most powerful dams blocking the flow of health. The fear of hereditary conditions requires special attention in this mental preparation. You have been taught that your genes are your destiny, that family medical history predicts your future. But genes are simply possibilities, not certainties. They are activated or remain dormant based on your thoughts, beliefs, and mental environment. When you refuse to accept hereditary doom, when you recognize yourself as a unique expression of the principle of health, regardless of family patterns, you free yourself from genetic determinism. This mental shift also transforms how you relate to medical information and diagnoses. A diagnosis is not a sentence, but simply a description of current conditions. Medical statistics are averages, not prophecies. Prognoses are educated guesses based on typical patterns, not declarations of your individual destiny. When you maintain your mental focus on health rather than disease, you become an outlier to statistics, an exception to rules, a demonstration of what is possible when the principle of health flows unobstructed. The mental preparation extends to your language patterns. You must eliminate phrases like "my arthritis," but "my condition," "my bad back." These possessive statements are claims of ownership, declarations that you have accepted these conditions as part of your identity. Replace them with temporary descriptions. I am experiencing some stiffness that is resolving. My back is returning to perfect function. My body is releasing old patterns. Language is creative, and every word either reinforces limitation or affirms vitality. You must also prepare mentally for the skepticism and resistance you will encounter from others. When you refuse to engage in disease talk, when you decline to commiserate about health problems, when you maintain optimism about your physical well-being, you will be seen as naive, irresponsible, or in denial. This social pressure to conform to disease consciousness is powerful. You must be prepared to stand firm in your new understanding, knowing that your results will ultimately speak louder than any argument. The mental preparation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing practice. Each day, you must renew your commitment to think health rather than disease. Each morning, you must choose again to focus on vitality rather than vulnerability. Each moment, you must decide whether to give your creative attention to shadows or light. This is the price of transformation. Constant vigilance not against disease, but against disease thinking. As this mental discipline becomes habitual, something remarkable happens. The constant anxiety about health that has been your companion for years begins to fade. The hypervigilance relaxes into trust. The fear transforms into expectancy. You stop bracing for impact and start opening to receive. This is not recklessness, but the ultimate wisdom, recognizing that your well-being is guaranteed by a principle more reliable than any human effort or intervention. The final aspect of mental preparation is the cultivation of unwavering faith in the principle of health itself. This is not blind faith, but logical confidence based on understanding. When you truly comprehend that there is an intelligent force within you that only knows how to create perfect health, that never sleeps, that never fails unless obstructed, your entire relationship with your body transforms from fear to partnership. You stop trying to micromanage your health and start trusting the intelligence that builds bodies from single cells. This mental preparation is the foundation upon which all practical health practices must be built. Without this shift in consciousness, no amount of perfect eating, exercise, or treatment will produce lasting vitality. With this shift, even imperfect actions will produce remarkable results because you have removed the primary obstruction to the principle of health, the obstruction of wrong thinking. You have stopped building the dam and started dismantling it, thought by thought. The journey from disease consciousness to health consciousness is the journey from fear to faith, from fighting to flowing, from resistance to allowing. It begins in your mind, in this moment, with the simple decision to stop giving creative power to what you don't want and start giving all your attention to the vitality that is trying to express through you. This is not just mental preparation, this is mental transformation, and it changes everything. The practical application of Wattles' principle requires specific actions that align your entire being with the flow of health. These are not arbitrary rules, but scientific practices that remove interference and allow the principle of health to express fully through your physical form. Think of them as the 4 pillars that support the temple of your well-being. Each pillar is essential. Each must be strong. Together, they create an unshakable foundation for vibrant health. These are not complex medical protocols, but simple, profound practices that anyone can implement immediately. The first pillar is to think health with unwavering consistency and absolute faith. This is the causative pillar, the one from which all others flow. You must hold in your mind the continuous thought and unshakable faith that you are a perfectly healthy being. This is not pretending or wishful thinking. This is recognizing the truth of your being beneath the temporary appearance of symptoms. See yourself as well, strong and vital, regardless of current physical sensations. Hold the image of perfect health so consistently that it becomes your default mental state. This practice of thinking health must become as automatic as breathing. When you wake, your first thought must be of gratitude for the perfect functioning of your body. As you move through your day, you must maintain the background awareness of vitality flowing through every cell. When you encounter mirrors, you must see not current appearance, but the perfect health expressing itself more fully each moment. When others speak of disease, you must maintain your mental image of universal well-being. This is not denial of others' experiences, but protection of your own creative consciousness. The mental practice extends to how you think about specific body parts and systems. Your heart is not struggling. It is powerfully circulating life through your being. Your digestive system is not sensitive. It is perfectly processing everything you provide. Your immune system is not weak. It is intelligently maintaining ideal balance. Your joints are not deteriorating. They are continuously regenerating. Every thought about your body must align with the truth of the principle of health, rather than the illusion of disease. The second pillar is to eat with health in mind, transforming every meal into a conscious act of cooperation with the life principle. This is not primarily about what you eat, though natural, vital foods obviously align better with health than processed, dead ones. The crucial element is the consciousness you bring to eating. When you eat with gratitude, with the thought that this food is being perfectly assimilated to build a strong, healthy body, you activate digestive and metabolic processes that no amount of perfect nutrition alone could achieve. Before each meal, pause and recognize what is about to occur. You are about to transform dead matter into living tissue through an intelligence that surpasses all human understanding. Express genuine gratitude for this miracle. As you eat, maintain the thought that every bite is contributing to your perfect health. See the nutrients flowing to exactly where they are needed. Feel the energy being released and utilized optimally. Know that your body knows exactly how to use what you are providing for maximum vitality. The consciousness you hold while eating is as important as the food you consume. You could eat the most perfectly balanced organic meal while thinking thoughts of disease, and you would derive little benefit. You could eat simple, modest food while holding thoughts of perfect assimilation and health, and your body would extract maximum value. This is why people in different cultures thrive on completely different diets. It is not the food alone, but the consciousness around food that determines its effect on health. This practice also means eating without guilt, fear, or anxiety about food. The modern obsession with dangerous foods, allergies, and sensitivities creates the very conditions it seeks to avoid. When you eat with fear, your body responds with inflammation and reaction. When you eat with confidence in your body's ability to process and utilize anything you provide, you activate its natural resilience and adaptability. This doesn't mean being reckless with nutrition, but it means trusting your body's intelligence more than fearing food's potential harm. The third pillar is to breathe with health in mind, recognizing breath as the most direct way to absorb the principle of life itself. With each conscious breath, you are not merely taking in oxygen, you are inhaling the very essence of vitality. This is not metaphorical but literal. The air contains not just chemical elements, but the living principle that animates all things. When you breathe with this awareness, you transform a mechanical process into a sacred act of receiving life. Throughout your day, take moments to breathe consciously and deeply, with the thought that you are inhaling the principle of life itself. Feel it flowing into your lungs, spreading through your bloodstream, reaching every cell with its revitalizing power. See your cells opening to receive this life force, using it to perfect their function. Know that with each breath you are literally inspiring health into your being. This conscious breathing need not be elaborate or time-consuming. Even 3 conscious breaths taken periodically throughout the day create powerful alignment. The breath is also your most immediate tool for releasing interference. When you notice tension, fear, or disease thinking arising, use your breath to release these obstructions. Breathe out the old pattern completely, then breathe in the new reality of perfect health. This is not just relaxation technique, but conscious cooperation with the principle of health. Your breath is the rhythm of life itself, and when you align with this rhythm consciously, you harmonize your entire being with the flow of vitality. Morning breathing practice sets the tone for your entire day. Upon waking before rising, take several deep breaths with the conscious thought that you are filling your being with fresh life force for the day ahead. Evening breathing prepares you for regenerative sleep. Before closing your eyes, breathe deeply with gratitude for the life flowing through you, setting the intention for perfect restoration during the night. These bookend practices create a container of conscious breathing that maintains alignment even during busy, unconscious moments. The 4th pillar is to sleep with health in mind, recognizing sleep as the time when the principle of health can work most powerfully because your conscious mind is not interfering. As you prepare for sleep, you must give clear direction to your subconscious mind that the principle of health will work unopposed through the night to perfectly restore and vitalize your entire system. This is not hoping for healing during sleep. This is commanding your subconscious to cooperate fully with the healing that naturally occurs when resistance is removed. The moments before sleep are particularly powerful for programming health. As your conscious mind relaxes its grip, your subconscious becomes highly receptive to suggestion. Use these moments to affirm perfect health, to visualize your body regenerating, to express gratitude for the restoration about to occur. See the principle of health working through the night like a master craftsman, repairing, rebuilding, revitalizing every aspect of your being. Know that you will wake refreshed, renewed, and more vital than when you went to sleep. Your sleeping environment must also align with health consciousness. Remove from your bedroom any reminders of disease, medication bottles, medical devices, health-related books that focus on problems rather than vitality. Create a space that suggests only rest, peace, and perfect well-being. Your subconscious mind remains aware of environmental cues even during sleep, and these cues either support or interfere with the principle of health's nocturnal work. The quality of your sleep thoughts determines the quality of your sleep healing. If you go to bed worried about symptoms, your body spends the night in stress mode rather than restoration mode. If you go to bed grateful for health, confident in your body's intelligence, expecting perfect restoration, your body can fully engage its remarkable regenerative capabilities. The same 8 hours of sleep can either deplete or restore you, depending entirely on the consciousness you bring to it. Throughout your day, whenever you think of your body, which should be often, you must think a thought of perfect health and gratitude. This is the continuous practice that maintains alignment between the formal practices of eating, breathing, and sleeping. Each time you become aware of your body, instead of scanning for problems, express appreciation for its perfect functioning. Thank your heart for beating, your lungs for breathing, your cells for their intelligent activity. This gratitude is not sentiment but alignment, keeping you in harmony with the principle of health. This practice of continuous gratitude transforms your relationship with your body from one of suspicious monitoring to one of appreciative partnership. Your body responds to this shift in remarkable ways. Systems that have been functioning under the stress of constant scrutiny begin to relax and optimize. Processes that have been disrupted by fear begin to normalize. The intelligence within your body, finally trusted rather than doubted, begins to express its full capability for maintaining perfect health. The integration of all four pillars creates a powerful synergy. When you think health while eating, breathe health while moving, sleep with health in mind, and maintain health consciousness throughout your day, you create an environment where disease simply cannot take hold. You are not fighting illness. You are creating conditions where only health can exist. This is not about perfection in practice, but consistency in consciousness. Even imperfect application of these principles, if done with genuine faith in the principle of health, produces remarkable results. The key to success with these four pillars is to understand that they are not techniques to create health, but practices to allow health. The principle of health needs no help to function perfectly. It only needs non-interference. Each pillar removes a specific type of interference. Thinking health removes mental obstruction. Eating with health in mind removes digestive obstruction. Breathing with health in mind removes energetic obstruction. Sleeping with health in mind removes restorative obstruction. Together, they clear all channels for the full flow of vitality. As you implement these pillars, you will notice immediate changes. Your energy increases, your sleep improves, your digestion optimizes, chronic issues begin to resolve. But more importantly, your entire experience of inhabiting a body transforms. The constant underlying anxiety about health dissolves. The fear of disease evaporates. You stop feeling like a vulnerable biological machine and start experiencing yourself as a conscious expression of infinite life. This is the true gift of Wattles' system, not just physical health, but complete transformation of your relationship with physical existence. Now we must confront the unconscious habits that actively sabotage the principle of health, creating dense obstructions to the natural flow of vitality through your being. These mistakes are so normalized in modern culture that you likely engage in them daily without recognizing their devastating impact on your well-being. The first and most destructive of these habits, the one I promise to reveal, is the simple act of talking about sickness. This revelation may seem anticlimactic, even absurd, but its implications are profound and its effects are catastrophic. Every time you describe your symptoms to others, complain about an ailment, or engage in detailed discussions about disease, you are using your creative power to reinforce and manifest illness. Words are not neutral descriptors, they are creative forces that shape reality. When you say, "My back is killing me," you are programming your subconscious mind and every cell in your body to manifest that experience. When you describe in vivid detail how terrible you felt yesterday, you are recreating that experience in the present moment and projecting it into your future. Consider the typical conversation between friends who haven't seen each other in months. After brief pleasantries, what follows? A detailed exchange of health problems, medical procedures, and physical complaints. "How's your arthritis?" "Oh, terrible, especially when it rains." "How's your diabetes?" "Getting worse. Had to increase my medication." This ritual of disease sharing is considered normal, even caring, but it is actually a mutual reinforcement of illness, a creative collaboration in manifesting poor health. Each participant leaves the conversation having strengthened their identity as a sick person. The social bonding that occurs through shared health complaints is particularly insidious. People form entire relationships based on mutual illness, finding comfort in comparing symptoms, treatments, and suffering. Support groups, while well-intentioned, often become venues for competitive disease storytelling, where members unconsciously vie for who has the worst condition. The temporary emotional comfort gained from this commiseration is vastly outweighed by the creative reinforcement of disease patterns. You are literally talking yourself sick, word by word, conversation by conversation. Medical consultations present a particular challenge. You believe you must describe your symptoms in detail to receive proper care, but every moment spent articulating disease is a moment spent creating it. The solution is not to avoid necessary medical care, but to change how you engage with it. State facts briefly and clinically, without emotional investment or elaborate description. Focus on solutions rather than problems. Maintain your mental image of perfect health, even while discussing temporary symptoms. Remember that you are describing a passing condition, not defining your identity. The habit of disease talking extends beyond verbal communication to mental rumination. How many hours do you spend thinking about symptoms, wondering what they mean, imagining worst-case scenarios? This internal dialogue is even more powerful than external conversation because it runs continuously, programming your subconscious mind 24 hours a day. Every thought about disease is a prayer for its continuation. Every mental rehearsal of illness is a blueprint for its manifestation. You are the author of your physical experience, and you are writing a story of sickness. The second fatal mistake is what Wattles called the tyranny of the senses, believing that physical symptoms represent ultimate reality rather than temporary effects of past thinking. When you experience a symptom, you immediately accept it as truth, as fixed reality, as something that must be fought or endured. But symptoms are simply the physical manifestation of previous thought patterns, no more fixed or permanent than shadows on a wall. They are effects, not causes, and effects can change the moment causes change. Your senses show you only the current state of physical manifestation, which always lags behind consciousness. By the time a symptom appears, the thought pattern that created it may be days, weeks, or even years in the past. If you accept the symptom as reality and give it your creative attention, you perpetuate the very thought pattern that created it. This is like looking in the rearview mirror while driving and believing that what you see behind you determines where you're going. Your senses show you where you've been, not where you're capable of going. The tyranny becomes complete when you allow symptoms to dictate your thoughts, creating a vicious cycle of manifestation. You feel pain, so you think about pain, which creates more pain, which reinforces thoughts of pain. You notice a lump, so you fear cancer, which creates stress chemistry that compromises immune function, which allows abnormal cells to proliferate. You experience fatigue, so you believe you're declining, which depletes your vital energy, which increases fatigue. The symptom becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because it had inherent power, but because you gave it creative authority over your experience. Breaking free from sensory tyranny requires tremendous mental discipline. You must learn to observe symptoms without accepting them as permanent reality. Notice them as you would notice weather, present but passing, real but temporary. Maintain your vision of perfect health regardless of current appearances. This is not denial, but recognition of a higher truth. The principle of health working within you is more real than any symptom. The creative power of your consciousness is more powerful than any physical manifestation. The third fatal mistake is half-hearted application of health principles, thinking health while eating junk food, or eating perfectly while maintaining disease consciousness, or doing everything right except continuing to talk about illness. The principle of health requires coherent alignment across all dimensions of your being. You cannot maintain a dam in one area while expecting the river to flow freely. Every contradictory thought or action creates interference that compromises the entire system. This half-hearted approach often stems from skepticism or hedging bets. People try to maintain health consciousness while keeping one foot in disease consciousness, just in case. They affirm health publicly while privately dwelling on symptoms. They eat consciously at meals, but snack unconsciously between them. They breathe deeply during yoga class, but shallow and anxiously the rest of the day. They program health before sleep, but wake to immediate symptom scanning. This divided consciousness creates exactly what it expects: divided results. The power of the principle of health is released through total commitment, not partial application. This doesn't mean perfect execution, but unified intention. When all your thoughts, words, and actions align toward health, even imperfect efforts produce remarkable results. When your consciousness is divided, even perfect practices produce mediocre outcomes. The principle responds not to the perfection of your practices, but to the coherence of your consciousness. Half-hearted application is worse than no application because it reinforces the belief that the principle doesn't work. Another aspect of half-hearted application is the tendency to apply health principles only when sick, abandoning them upon feeling better. This treats the principle of health as emergency medicine rather than a way of life. People think health thoughts when symptoms appear, but return to disease consciousness when symptoms subside. They eat consciously when digestive issues arise, but carelessly when feeling fine. This intermittent application prevents the development of stable health consciousness and guarantees future returns of illness. The inconsistency often extends to different areas of life. Someone might maintain perfect health consciousness about their heart, while harboring disease consciousness about their joints. They might trust the principle of health for minor issues, while believing serious conditions require fear and fighting. This selective faith creates exactly what it expects: health where trust exists, disease where fear dominates. The principle of health is not selective, your consciousness is. These three fatal mistakes, talking about sickness, accepting sensory tyranny, and half-hearted application, are the primary ways modern humans interfere with their natural inheritance of perfect health. Each mistake alone can create significant obstruction. Together, they create an almost impenetrable barrier to the flow of vitality. Most people engage in all three habits daily, then wonder why they struggle with chronic health issues despite trying everything. They are simultaneously pressing the accelerator and the brake, creating motion but no progress. The solution is not gradual reduction of these habits, but immediate and complete cessation. Stop talking about disease today, not tomorrow. Stop accepting symptoms as fixed reality now, not eventually. Commit fully to health consciousness immediately, not after you see results. The principle of health responds instantly to the removal of obstruction. The moment you stop building the dam, the river begins dissolving what remains. The moment you stop blocking the light, illumination begins penetrating the darkness. Beyond the primary mistakes that block the principle of health, Wattles offered specific guidance that seems extreme by modern standards, but proves profoundly powerful in practice. His most radical prescription: never read articles about disease, never watch medical dramas, and protect your mind from images of sickness with the same vigilance you would protect it from poison. This is not ignorance or denial. This is recognition that your mind is the creative center of your physical experience, and what you allow into your mind determines what manifests in your body. Consider the media you consume daily. News programs lead with health crises, magazines feature disease of the month, social media feeds overflow with medical horror stories and fundraisers for illness. Television dramas glorify medical emergencies, making heroes of disease fighters and drama of suffering. Pharmaceutical advertisements, legally required to list side effects, program your mind with detailed descriptions of everything that could go wrong with your body. Each exposure is a seed planted in your subconscious, waiting for the right conditions to germinate into physical manifestation. The medical entertainment industry has made disease fascinating, even entertaining. People binge-watch shows about rare conditions, medical mysteries, and surgical procedures. They find it educational, exciting, even relaxing. But every image of disease you absorb becomes part of your mental library, available for your subconscious to reference and recreate. You are literally programming yourself with possibilities for illness, expanding your repertoire of potential health problems, giving your creative consciousness detailed blueprints for manifesting disease. Even well-intentioned health education often becomes disease programming. Articles about preventing illness spend 90% of their content describing the illness in vivid detail. Awareness campaigns make you hyper-aware of diseases you never knew existed. Screening reminders make you search for problems that may not exist. Public health messaging, designed to promote wellness, often promotes fear and disease consciousness instead. The intention is protection, but the effect is programming. Wattles understood that mental environment determines physical manifestation. Just as you wouldn't live in a physically toxic environment and expect health, you cannot live in a mentally toxic environment and expect vitality. The images, ideas, and information you expose yourself to become the raw materials from which your subconscious constructs your physical experience. Feed it images of disease, and it creates disease. Feed it images of health, and it creates health. The principle is simple, but the discipline required is extraordinary. The protection of mental environment extends to conversations, relationships, and social circles. Some people are walking disease broadcasters, constantly sharing medical horror stories, symptoms, and fears. Their company is toxic to your health consciousness, regardless of their good intentions. You must either redirect these conversations, minimize contact, or develop immunity to their influence. This is not coldness, but self-preservation. You wouldn't let someone poison your food. Why let them poison your mind? Medical research and health information present a particular challenge. The desire to be informed conflicts with the need to protect consciousness. The solution is purposeful, limited engagement. If you must research a health topic, do so briefly, extract necessary information, then immediately return to health consciousness. Don't browse medical sites. Don't follow diagnostic rabbit holes. Don't indulge curiosity about diseases. Treat medical information like radiation, sometimes necessary but always requiring protection and minimal exposure. Wattles also emphasized the importance of mental diet during vulnerable states. When you're tired, stressed, or already experiencing symptoms, your mental defenses are lowered and you become more susceptible to disease programming. These are precisely the times when you must be most vigilant about mental input. No medical dramas when you're feeling weak, no symptom Googling when you're anxious, no disease discussions when you're vulnerable. Protect your consciousness most carefully when it's most susceptible. The master key to mental protection is replacement rather than resistance. Instead of fighting against disease thoughts, actively fill your mind with health thoughts. Instead of avoiding medical entertainment, immerse yourself in vitality content. Instead of resisting disease conversations, initiate health discussions. Read biographies of vibrant centenarians. Watch documentaries about human potential. Study the science of regeneration and healing. Surround yourself with images and ideas of strength, vitality, and unlimited life force. Create a mental environment that makes health inevitable. Fill your living space with images of vitality, photos of yourself at your healthiest, artwork depicting strength and life, plants that demonstrate continuous growth and renewal. Program your devices to deliver health affirmations rather than news alerts. Curate your social media to show only positive, vital content. Design your entire informational ecosystem to support health consciousness rather than disease awareness. The practice extends to imagination and visualization. Most people use their imagination to rehearse disease scenarios. They visualize worst-case outcomes, imagine themselves sick or declining, mentally rehearse medical procedures. This creative visualization is powerful but misdirected. Instead, use your imagination to rehearse perfect health. Visualize yourself vital at every age. Imagine your body functioning perfectly. Mentally rehearse feelings of strength, energy, and well-being. Your imagination is a preview of coming attractions. Make sure you're previewing what you want to experience. Wattles also taught the importance of selective memory regarding health. Most people maintain detailed mental records of every health problem they've experienced, creating a library of disease patterns available for repetition. They can describe illnesses from decades ago in vivid detail, but barely remember periods of perfect health. This selective memory reinforces disease patterns and creates expectation of recurrence. Instead, deliberately forget illness and vividly remember wellness. Make your health history a story of vitality, interrupted by brief forgotten shadows. The mental discipline extends to how you interpret heredity and aging. If you accept your family's medical history as your destiny, you program yourself to manifest those patterns. If you believe aging means inevitable decline, you create that experience. Instead, recognize yourself as a unique expression of the principle of health, unbound by family patterns or age expectations. Know that consciousness trumps genetics, that expectation determines experience, that your mental environment is more powerful than your hereditary environment. This protection of mental environment requires particular vigilance in medical settings. Hospitals and clinics are saturated with disease consciousness. Waiting rooms are filled with sick people reinforcing each other's illness. Medical professionals, despite good intentions, often project expectations of disease and decline. When you must enter these environments, maintain your mental protection. Hold firmly to health consciousness. See yourself as temporarily visiting, not belonging. Know that you are under the protection of a principle more powerful than any medical condition. The ultimate protection is the cultivation of unshakable faith in the principle of health. When you truly know that there is an intelligent force within you that only creates perfect health, external disease programming loses its power. When you understand that symptoms are temporary effects of past thinking, not fixed realities, fear evaporates. When you recognize your creative authority over your physical experience, you become immune to suggestion. This is not arrogance, but alignment, not denial, but recognition of truth. The principles Wattles revealed, though presented in the language of early 20th century philosophy, find remarkable validation in modern scientific discoveries that he could never have imagined. The field of psychoneuroimmunology, unknown in Wattles' time, now demonstrates the precise mechanisms by which thoughts and emotions directly influence immune function, cellular behavior, and genetic expression. This is not mysticism validated by science. This is science discovering what philosophers like Wattles intuited through careful observation of human experience. Psychoneuroimmunology, often abbreviated as PNI, maps the intricate communication networks between your thoughts, your nervous system, and your immune system. Every thought you think triggers cascades of neurotransmitters and hormones that directly influence immune cells. When you think thoughts of fear, anger, or disease, your body releases stress hormones like cortisol and inflammatory cytokines that suppress immune function and create conditions favorable to disease. When you think thoughts of peace, gratitude, and health, your body releases beneficial chemicals that enhance immune function and promote healing. The research is unequivocal. Chronic stress and negative thought patterns measurably suppress immune function. People who maintain pessimistic outlooks have weaker immune responses to vaccines, slower wound healing, and higher susceptibility to infections. Those who ruminate on negative experiences show increased inflammatory markers associated with countless chronic diseases. The mechanism is not mysterious. Stress hormones directly suppress the activity of immune cells, reduce the production of antibodies, and compromise the body's ability to identify and eliminate abnormal cells. Conversely, positive mental states enhance immune function in measurable ways. Studies show that people who maintain optimistic outlooks have stronger vaccine responses, faster wound healing, and better resistance to infections. Meditation and gratitude practices increase antibody production and natural killer cell activity. Visualization of immune cells successfully fighting disease actually increases their effectiveness. The thought of health literally creates the chemistry of health, exactly as Wattles described without knowing the biological mechanisms. The science of epigenetics has revolutionized our understanding of genetic determinism, validating Wattles' assertion that consciousness trumps heredity. Your genes are not fixed blueprints, but dynamic instructions that can be activated or silenced by environmental factors, and your thoughts and emotions are among the most powerful environmental factors. The field of behavioral epigenetics shows that your mental state directly influences which genes are expressed and which remain dormant. Fear, stress, and disease thinking activate genes associated with inflammation, tumor growth, and metabolic dysfunction. Peace, joy, and health thinking activate genes associated with longevity, repair, and optimal function. These changes can occur within minutes of shifting mental states. A single meditation session measurably alters gene expression. A practice of gratitude changes which genetic instructions your cells follow. Your consciousness is literally conducting the genetic orchestra of your body, determining which instruments play and which remain silent. The placebo effect, long dismissed as mere suggestion, is now recognized as proof of the mind's direct influence on physical healing. Brain imaging shows that when people believe they're receiving treatment, their brains produce the exact neurotransmitters and hormones that the actual treatment would trigger. Placebo painkillers cause the brain to release endorphins. Placebo antidepressants trigger serotonin production. Placebo surgeries produce real tissue changes. The belief in healing creates the chemistry of healing, independent of any external intervention. More remarkably, the nocebo effect demonstrates the destructive power of negative expectation. When people believe something will harm them, their bodies create that harm even when no harmful agent is present. Patients who are told about drug side effects are significantly more likely to experience them, even when taking placebos. People who believe they're sensitive to electromagnetic fields experience real symptoms in the presence of sham devices. The expectation of illness creates the biology of illness, exactly as Wattles warned about the creative power of disease thinking. Neuroplasticity research reveals that your brain physically restructures itself based on your thought patterns. When you consistently think thoughts of disease, your brain develops and strengthens neural pathways that support disease consciousness. When you consistently think thoughts of health, your brain builds and reinforces neural pathways that support vitality. This is not metaphorical. Brain scans show actual structural changes. The brain you have today was shaped by the thoughts you've been thinking, and the brain you'll have tomorrow is being shaped by the thoughts you're thinking now. The field of psycho-oncology studies how mental states influence cancer development and progression. Research consistently shows that stress, depression, and hopelessness accelerate tumor growth and metastasis, while optimism, social support, and sense of purpose slow or reverse disease progression. The mechanisms are clear. Stress hormones promote angiogenesis, tumor blood vessel growth, suppress immune surveillance, and activate inflammatory pathways that fuel cancer. Positive mental states reverse these processes, enhancing immune function and creating biochemical conditions unfavorable to cancer. Studies on meditation and mindfulness provide particularly compelling validation of Wattles' principles. Regular meditation practice measurably reduces inflammatory markers, increases telomerase activity associated with cellular youth, enhances immune function, and alters brain structure in ways that promote emotional regulation and stress resilience. The simple act of directing conscious attention to the present moment, particularly with thoughts of peace and well-being, creates cascading biological changes that promote health at every level. The science of heart rate variability reveals another mechanism by which consciousness influences health. When you maintain states of appreciation, gratitude, and coherent emotion, your heart rhythm becomes ordered and coherent, sending signals throughout your body that promote optimal function. When you maintain states of fear, anger, and emotional chaos, your heart rhythm becomes disordered, sending stress signals that compromise function. Your emotional state literally orchestrates your physiology through the electromagnetic and neural signals of your heart. Research on spontaneous remission, cases where serious diseases disappear without medical explanation, consistently identifies common factors that align perfectly with Wattles' principles. Patients who experience spontaneous healing often report profound shifts in consciousness, release of negative emotions, adoption of positive outlooks, and unshakable belief in their recovery. They stop fighting disease and start affirming health. They release fear and embrace trust. They shift from victim consciousness to creative authority, exactly as Wattles prescribed. The emerging field of quantum biology suggests even deeper mechanisms by which consciousness might influence health. Quantum coherence in biological systems, quantum entanglement in neural networks, and the role of consciousness in quantum measurement all point to direct connections between awareness and physical manifestation. While still controversial, this research suggests that consciousness might influence health at the most fundamental level of reality, collapsing probability waves into specific physical outcomes. Studies on the health effects of gratitude provide particularly powerful validation. People who maintain gratitude practices show improved immune function, better sleep, reduced inflammation, lower blood pressure, and increased longevity. The simple act of appreciating what's working in your body rather than focusing on what's wrong creates measurable improvements in virtually every biomarker of health. Gratitude is not just positive thinking, it's a biological intervention more powerful than many pharmaceuticals. The science of social genomics reveals that loneliness and social isolation trigger genetic changes that promote inflammation and compromise immune function, while connection and belonging trigger genetic changes that reduce inflammation and enhance immunity. This validates Wattles' understanding that we are not isolated biological machines, but interconnected expressions of a unified life principle. Our health is influenced not just by our individual consciousness, but by our recognition of connection to the larger whole. Research on the default mode network of the brain shows that most people spend the majority of their time in mental states that promote disease, ruminating on problems, anticipating threats, rehearsing negative scenarios. This default programming creates chronic stress chemistry that underlies most chronic diseases. But this default can be changed through conscious practice, exactly as Wattles prescribed. When you deliberately direct your attention to health, gratitude, and present moment awareness, you reprogram your default state from disease-promoting to health-promoting. The validation from modern science is overwhelming. Consciousness directly influences biology through multiple measurable pathways. Thoughts create chemical cascades. Emotions alter gene expression. Beliefs shape neural structure. Expectations influence outcomes. The principle that Wattles intuited, that health is created or destroyed primarily in consciousness, is no longer philosophy, but established science. The only question is whether you will apply this knowledge or continue operating from outdated paradigms that ignore the primacy of consciousness in creating physical experience. The transformation from disease to health through consciousness is not merely theoretical. It manifests daily in countless lives around the world, often in ways that confound conventional medical understanding. These are not miracles or anomalies, but demonstrations of what becomes possible when people align with the principle of health that Wattles described. The patterns are consistent. A shift from fighting to allowing, from fear to trust, from identifying with disease to identifying with vitality. Consider the archetype of individuals who recover from supposedly incurable conditions against all medical odds. Their stories share remarkable similarities. Almost universally, they describe a moment of profound shift, not in their physical condition, but in their relationship to it. They stop being a person with cancer and become a person experiencing temporary cellular confusion. They stop having chronic fatigue syndrome and start having an energy pattern that's shifting. They stop fighting disease and start cooperating with health. This identity shift precedes and precipitates the physical healing. Take the modern example of someone struggling with chronic digestive issues for years, a condition increasingly common in our stress-filled, fear-focused culture. They've tried every elimination diet, taken every supplement, consulted every specialist. They've identified their trigger foods, mapped their sensitivities, and organized their entire life around managing their condition. They've become an expert in their disease, able to describe every symptom in detail, predict every reaction, anticipate every problem. Their identity has become inseparable from their digestive dysfunction. Then something shifts. Perhaps they encounter Wattles' principles or similar teachings. Perhaps they simply reach a point of exhaustion with fighting. They make a radical decision to stop focusing on their digestive problems entirely. They stop reading about gut health, stop discussing their symptoms, stop identifying as someone with digestive issues. Instead, they begin eating with pure gratitude and the thought of perfect digestion. They visualize their digestive system working flawlessly. They thank their body for its intelligent processing of nutrients. They eat foods they've avoided for years, not recklessly, but with confidence in their body's capability. The initial period requires tremendous faith. Symptoms may temporarily intensify as old patterns resist change. Friends and family express concern about this seemingly irresponsible approach. Medical professionals warn about the dangers of ignoring symptoms. But they persist in their new consciousness, maintaining thoughts of perfect digestion regardless of temporary sensations. They refuse to discuss symptoms, refuse to monitor reactions, refuse to give creative energy to dysfunction. They act as if they have perfect digestion until their body has no choice but to manifest that reality. Gradually, sometimes suddenly, transformation occurs. Foods that triggered severe reactions are digested easily. Symptoms that persisted for years simply vanish. Energy returns, inflammation resolves, and the entire digestive system begins functioning with an ease they haven't experienced since childhood. Medical tests that once showed dysfunction now show optimal function. Doctors have no explanation except to suggest the original diagnosis must have been incorrect. But the person knows the truth. They changed their consciousness and their body followed. This same pattern repeats across every category of health challenge. The executive diagnosed with hypertension, who stops fighting high blood pressure and starts appreciating their heart's perfect function, watching their readings normalize without medication. The athlete with chronic joint pain, who stops identifying as injured and starts seeing their body as continuously regenerating, returning to full activity pain-free. The parent with autoimmune disease who stops believing their immune system is attacking them and starts knowing it's intelligently rebalancing, experiencing complete remission. These transformations often occur after years or decades of unsuccessful medical treatment. Not because medical treatment is worthless, it has its place in addressing acute conditions and providing temporary relief. But because medical treatment addresses effects, while consciousness addresses causes. When the cause shifts, the effects must follow, regardless of how fixed or permanent they appeared. This is not faith healing or wishful thinking. This is the logical consequence of understanding that consciousness creates biology, not the reverse. The social proof extends beyond individual healing to entire communities that demonstrate these principles. Religious science practitioners, Unity Church members, and students of New Thought philosophy consistently show better health outcomes than general populations, not because of superior genetics or healthcare access, but because of superior consciousness. They maintain thoughts of health rather than disease. They practice gratitude rather than complaint. They see their bodies as expressions of divine life rather than vulnerable biological machines. Their collective health demonstrates what becomes possible when groups align with the principle of health. Historical examples provide additional validation. Mary Baker Eddy, founder of Christian Science, recovered from injuries pronounced fatal and lived to age 89 in an era when life expectancy was 47. Phineas Quimby, whose teachings influenced Wattles, healed countless individuals through mental treatment alone. Ernest Holmes, founder of religious science, demonstrated vibrant health throughout his life by applying these principles. These were not special beings with unique powers, but ordinary people who understood and applied extraordinary principles. The pattern is always the same: release of disease consciousness, adoption of health consciousness, and subsequent physical transformation. The speed varies. Some experience instant healing, others gradual improvement, but the direction is consistent. Once consciousness shifts from disease to health, the body must follow. It has no choice. The principle of health, no longer obstructed, expresses itself naturally and powerfully, often in ways that seem miraculous but are actually completely lawful. We have journeyed through the architecture of a profound truth that shatters conventional understanding of health and disease. The synthesis of everything we've explored reveals a power that has always been yours, but which modern culture has taught you to forget, deny, or surrender to external authorities. Health is not something you chase through endless protocols, create through perfect behaviors, or earn through sufficient suffering. Health is your natural state, always trying to express itself through you, requiring only that you stop obstructing its flow with thoughts and actions that contradict your true nature. The principle of health that Wattles revealed is not a foreign force you must invoke or a distant resource you must access. It is the very essence of your being, more intimate than your heartbeat, more constant than your breath. Every cell in your body is animated by this principle. Every system operates according to its intelligence. Every function expresses its purpose. You are not a body that contains life. You are life itself, temporarily expressing through physical form. This is not poetry or metaphor, but the literal truth of your existence. Sickness, despite all its apparent power and the enormous industries built around fighting it, is nothing more than a shadow, the absence of light rather than the presence of darkness. It has no independent existence, no creative power, no purpose or intelligence. It is simply what manifests when you use your creative consciousness to oppose the natural flow of life through your being. Every disease, no matter how complex its medical name or frightening its prognosis, is fundamentally the same phenomenon: interference with the principle of health through wrong thinking and unconscious action. Your body is not a battlefield where health and disease wage war. It is a sacred temple where only one force operates, the force of life itself, always seeking perfect expression. When you understand this, truly understand it at the depth of your being, the entire paradigm of fighting disease reveals itself as an exhausting illusion. You cannot fight shadows. You cannot battle absence. You cannot defeat something that doesn't actually exist. You can only introduce light, remove obstruction, and allow the ever-present principle to express itself fully. The power you hold is the power of consciousness itself, the ability to direct your creative attention toward what you choose to experience. This is not a small power or a subtle influence. This is the fundamental creative force of the universe, expressing through your individual awareness. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every image you hold is a creative act that shapes your physical reality. You are not subject to your body. Your body is subject to your consciousness. You are the author of your physical experience, whether you write consciously or unconsciously. This understanding transforms you from a victim of biology into a conscious creator of your physical experience. You are not at the mercy of genes, germs, or aging. You are not helpless against heredity, environment, or circumstance. You are a sovereign being with complete authority over your own life force. Disease has only the power you give it through attention and belief. Health has all the power of the infinite principle that creates and sustains all life. When you align with health, you align with the fundamental creative force of existence itself. Your body is not a machine wearing out with use, but a living expression of infinite intelligence, continuously regenerating, perpetually seeking perfect function. Every cell replaces itself regularly, some in days, others in months, none lasting more than 7 years. You literally have a new body regularly, built according to the blueprint of your consciousness. If you hold blueprints of disease, you build disease. If you hold blueprints of health, you build health. The body you inhabit tomorrow is being constructed by the thoughts you think today. Stop giving your power away to the shadows of disease. Stop accepting the cultural programming that says decline is inevitable, that sickness is powerful, that your body is fragile and failing. These are lies that profit from your fear, industries that depend on your disease consciousness, systems that require your submission to external authority. Your body is not failing. It is responding perfectly to the consciousness you've been maintaining. Change your consciousness, and your body must change in response. You are the custodian of divine flow, the guardian of the life principle seeking expression through your unique form. This is not a burden, but the highest privilege, to be a conscious channel for infinite life. Every moment offers the opportunity to align with this flow or obstruct it. Every thought either opens the channel wider or narrows it further. Every word either affirms life or denies it. Every action either cooperates with the principle or opposes it. The choice is always yours, and it is always available, regardless of current conditions or past patterns. Think health, and health becomes your reality. Act health, and your body responds with vitality. Speak health, and you create the vibration of well-being in every cell. This is not positive thinking layered over negative reality. This is recognition of which force is real and which is illusion. The principle of health is real, substantial, powerful, and ever-present. Disease is unreal, insubstantial, powerless, and temporary. When you align your consciousness with reality rather than illusion, transformation is not just possible, but inevitable. Become the perfect expression of the wellness that is your eternal birthright. This wellness is not something you must earn, achieve, or deserve. It is what you are when all interference is removed. It is your natural state when you stop creating opposition. It is what remains when you release everything that is not truly you, or the fear or the programming, or the identification with limitation and lack. Beneath all of that is pure life force, waiting to express as perfect health through your willing consciousness. The transformation available to you is not just physical but total. When you align with the principle of health, you align with the principle of life itself. This affects not just your body, but your entire experience of existence. Fear dissolves into trust. Anxiety transforms into peace. The constant vigilance against threat relaxes into confident expectation of good. You stop bracing for impact and start opening to receive. You stop surviving and start thriving. This is the real gift. Not just health, but a completely transformed relationship with life itself. Now comes your moment of decision, the pivot point where understanding must transform into action, where knowledge must become embodied wisdom. The Health Embodiment Challenge I present to you is not a test, but an invitation to prove to yourself the power of these principles, to experience firsthand the transformation that occurs when you align with the principle of health. For 7 days, just 1 week of your life, you will consciously cooperate with the life force that animates you and observe the remarkable shifts that follow. The challenge is precise and non-negotiable. First, you must refuse to speak a single negative word about your health. Not one complaint, not one symptom description, not one fear expressed. When others invite you to discuss disease, you must gracefully decline or redirect. When you feel the habitual urge to verbalize discomfort, you must consciously choose silence or affirmation instead. This verbal discipline alone will revolutionize your experience as you discover how much creative energy you've been investing in, manifesting the very conditions you wish to avoid. Second, you must consciously hold a thought of health and gratitude before every meal, before sleep, and for 1 focused minute every morning. Before eating, pause and recognize the miracle about to occur, dead matter transforming into living tissue through infinite intelligence. Before sleep, command your subconscious to cooperate fully with the principle of health working through the night. Each morning, spend 60 seconds visualizing perfect health flowing through every cell, every organ, every system. These moments of conscious alignment create powerful momentum that carries through your entire day. This is not about perfection, but direction. You may catch yourself mid-complaint and stop. You may forget the morning visualization and do it later. You may eat a meal unconsciously, then remember afterward. What matters is the sincere effort to align with health rather than disease, to give your creative attention to what you want rather than what you fear. Even imperfect application of these principles will produce noticeable results because you are cooperating with a principle that requires only the removal of obstruction to express fully. During these 7 days, observe without judgment what arises. Notice the automatic thoughts that surface when you stop complaining, the fear that you're ignoring something important, the belief that discussing symptoms is necessary, the social discomfort of not participating in disease conversations. Notice how your body responds to conscious eating, grateful breathing, and intentional sleep. Notice the shifts in energy, mood, and physical sensation. Notice how differently you feel when you stop feeding disease with your attention and start feeding health with your consciousness. After 7 days, report back on the transformation you've experienced. Share not just physical changes, but the shifts in mental peace, emotional stability, and spiritual connection. Describe the difference between fighting disease and allowing health. Articulate what it feels like to stop being a victim of your body and start being a conscious partner with the life force within you. Your testimony will inspire others to undertake their own journey from disease consciousness to health consciousness, creating a ripple effect of transformation that extends far beyond your individual experience. If you are ready to cooperate with the principle of life itself, if you are prepared to release the exhausting battle against shadows and align with the light that you are, then accept this challenge now. Subscribe to the Master's Legacy and activate all notifications so you don't miss the advanced practices and deeper revelations that will support your transformation. Join a community of conscious beings who refuse to accept limitation as reality, who recognize their true nature as expressions of infinite life, who are remembering how to cooperate with, rather than obstruct, the principle that creates and sustains all existence. It is time to stop fighting. It is time to start flowing. It is time to be well,